what the plant in its innocence allows to be kissed by the sunbeams, so that the new plant can be born therefrom. This takes a reversed direction in man, in his chastity, directed towards the central point of the earth. The animal stands in the middle, between the two. The animal is turned halfway to the plant. Plato, in his summing up, says what lives in plant, animal, and human being. The word soul is crucified on the cross of the word body. The word soul, which streams through plant, animal, and human being, is crucified on the word body. Thus has the cross always been explained by spiritual science. Now the pupil who was led forward to this significant image was told, "You see how the human being has developed himself from the Tao consciousness of the plant, beyond the consciousness of the animal, and has found his self-consciousness. In the sleeping human being, we have a state of being that has the same existence value as the plant. Because the human being has permeated the pure innocent plant matter with his body of desires, he has risen higher, but in a certain sense has descended lower. Otherwise, he would not have been able to acquire his high ego consciousness. Now he must again transform his astral nature. In the future, the human being will have an organ free of passion, like the flower's chalice." It was then pointed out to the pupil that a time would come when the human being would bring forth his life free of passion. This was presented in the Grail schools in the image of the Holy Grail. Here you have evolution presented not in thoughts, but in a picture, in an imagination. So it would be possible to transmute into pictures what has been given us only in abstract concepts. Thereby we would be accomplishing much. When one allows this pregnant idea of evolution to rise before one, up into the development of the imagination of the Holy Grail, then one has food and nourishment for more than just one's power of judgment. Then not only does the rational understanding cling to it, but also the full being of feeling twines around it. You tremble before the great word secret when you see the development of the word in truth and receive it in such imaginations. Then these imaginations work lawfully upon the organism, harmonizing it. Abstract thoughts are without effect. These imaginations, however, work as health-bringing inner impulses. Imaginations bring about effects, and if these be true word pictures, imaginations, they work in a health-bringing way. When the human being transforms what he sees outwardly into pictures, then he frees himself from his inner being. Then does the storm resolve itself into a harmony, and he is able to overcome the power that binds all beings. Then will he be able to relate himself to everything that comes his way. He streams out. Through his feelings he grows into union with the world. His inner self is widened to a spiritual universe. In the moment when the human being has no possibility of forming these inner imaginations, then all his forces stream inwards and he clings fast to his ego. This is the mysterious reason for what meets us in many of our contemporaries. Human beings have forsaken religion's old form, and now they are turned back on themselves. They live ever more in themselves, ever more only with themselves. The less possibility the human being has of dissolving into the universal world being, the more he perceives what happens in his organism. This is the cause of false feelings of anxiety and of illusions of illness. The image reacts out of the soul upon the organism. Healthy trends in the body are affected by true images. False images, however, also leave their imprint, giving rise to what meet us as soul disturbances, which later become bodily disturbances. Here we have the true basis that finally leads to illusory illness. Whoever closes himself off from the great world relationships will not be able to dismiss what comes toward him. On the other hand, it is impossible for the one who has been impressed by the all-embracing imaginations to let himself be deceived by false images. He would not, for example, as is often the case, think he detected an induction apparatus current pass through his body when no current was present. Every image that does not find a place in the overall general nexus, that functions as a one-sided everyday image, is at the same time an illness-inducing image. It is only if the human being always looks up from the single, the lone, to the great secret of the universe that he thereby corrects what must be corrected. For what really works upon the soul is a strong force. What emerges in the course of cultural developments is a fact not to be overlooked. Today we limit ourselves to our instincts about health. Let us consider tragedy from this point of view. The ancient Greeks knew that what I am about to say is true, that the human being watches tragedy, lives with its suffering, is seized by its impressions, gripped by them, but by the time it is over, he knows that the hero has won out over the suffering, and that the human being can overcome the suffering of the world. It is through his living with suffering and overcoming it that he becomes healthy. Turning one's gaze inward makes for sickness. To express what lives within one in an image outside makes for health. Thus it is that Aristotle would have tragedy presented to show how the protagonist goes through suffering and fear so that the human being is healed of pain and fear. This has far-reaching effects. The spiritual scientist can tell you wherefore the ancient people brought fairy tale and legend pictures before the soul of the human being. Pictures were presented to him, pictures from which he should turn away his inward gazing. The blood flowing in fairy tales is a healthy educational means. Whoever can so look at myth will be able to see much. When, for example, the human being outwardly sees revenge in a picture, when he sees in outer picture what he should give up, the result is that he overcomes it. Deep, deep wisdom lies in the most bloodthirsty fairy tales. Our inner harmony is disturbed if we forever stand gaping into our souls. We become healthy in soul when we look into the all, into the cosmos. But one must know which images are needed. Consider a melancholic person, a hypochondriac, who simply cannot free himself from certain happenings. One would like to bring some gaiety into his soul with gay music, etc. But one brings forth the opposite, gloom, even if it does not appear so at the moment. The deeper ground of his soul finds it flat and dreary, even if he does not admit to this. Serious pictures are necessary, even if they unnerve one at first. Thus you see that a quite definite way of dealing with the soul can arise. It is not possible to get at illusory illness through a single means. It rests on the materialism of our time, on the lack of creativity, spurious, faceless anxiety, or the feelings that express the distorted soul balance in melancholy, etc., are explained by a deeper observation of the connection of things. Through this, the means of healing are also found. It would just never be possible for one who continually fathoms the connection of things not to be released from his ego. In cases where the ego is not released, there is some kind of provocation, and this is exaggerated. For example, someone bumped his knee on the edge of the table. He lacked the large, asserting ideas, and thus he could not rid himself of the pain. The pain grew worse. The doctor was called, and he said to do this and that. Then suddenly the person felt the pain in the other knee. Then his elbow became painful, etc., until finally he could no longer move his legs or hands, all because he bumped his knee. There may be reasons that the attention is directed to a particular point, but there are also possibilities present that could bring about a balance. The human being finds the balance in his ever more difficult life only if he allows spiritual science to work upon him. Then he will find himself armed against the cultural influences. We can, however, also find outer causes for lack of creativity. The facts speak loudly. Observe the animals that in our culture are transplanted into captivity. They become sick, they who in the outside world would never become sick. This arises because of the strong influences upon man and animal that flow from the outer environment. The animal cannot develop a counterforce because his development is terminated. Through civilization, the human being also comes to decadence if he is unable to counter outer influences with creative force. He must reshape and transform the influences by inner activity. Then it is even possible that these influences can be used by the human being for higher development. The person who elaborates and creates a radical theory of materialism is healthy because he creates from within outwards. But the followers of the theory waste away because they bring forth no creative force of their own. If you read books of spiritual science, there is nothing that you gain unless you inwardly recreate them for yourselves. Then your activity becomes an inner cooperative creativity. If this be not the case, then it is not studying of spiritual scientific books as it is meant to be. It depends upon developing the feeling for the forces that surge forward, the forces that would receive the outer world. It depends upon finding the balance between outer impressions and inner creativity. Men must free themselves from the outer strife in the world so that it does not make itself ever more noticeable and oppressive. We must carry out the counter-thrust. The outer impression must inwardly experience the counter-thrust. Then we become free of it. Otherwise, it will continue to turn us back upon ourselves over and over again. If we be always watchful only of our inner life, then there arises before our souls a picture of suffering. If we achieve an expression of balance between outer forces and inner forces that indefatigably would go forward, then we amalgamate with the outer world.